childhood.
Unlike reincarnation, here the person goes to a new place. It's rather like moving from school to university. There's no direct equivalent in African spirituality of the Western concept of soul. Africans speak of life force, moya, which is breath or wind. Then there is Siriti and Isatunzi, which is similar to the Western concept of the aura, that subtle energy which surrounds the living person. The spirit of the dead person is a combination of life force and aura.
Whereas the people are dead and in the Musima buried, their Siriti, that aura, is Tunzi, continues to be with the people who are living on earth. And their activity as part of the community continues in exactly the same capacity and even in a more concentrated capacity as when they were living. These ancestors, therefore, are not seen as anything other than as people.
There are two aspects of the spirit. There is one part of the spirit that remains at the grave where the person was buried, and there is the other aspect of the spirit that goes on to join the ancestors. The one that remains at the grave is an active force, an active one. It is active even if you don't know that there's a person buried there. You actually feel that there's somebody who is here, somebody who is buried, depending, of course, how sensitive you are. That means that these areas become areas of focus for people who come from those families. They go and they make prayers there and they talk to those people. When you talk to the dead, you talk as if you're talking to them, because you know that they're not dead. They've just entered another cycle and talk directly to those people and so on.
The spirit of the dead person is a force that the living must contend with. One of the ways of doing this is to build a special ancestor hutch, such as this one, which serves as a constant reminder of their presence and influence.
Whereas the Zulus call them Amadlozi and the Xhosas Izinyanya, in Sotho-Tswana, the word Badimo is a personal noun, and properly analyzed means the people of Mudimu. Because in the underground, they are with Mudimu. They are the congregation of Mudimu. And therefore, in the whole run of things, the hierarchy of things, they are, as it were, the big indunas of Mudimu who carry out the wishes and instructions and blessings of Mudimu on the ordinary people.
After a year, there's a special ritual, special ceremony of bringing back Buisa. And this idea in this system, this ceremony of Buisa, is the assumption that the person is mature enough in the world of the ancestors to take the responsibility of looking after the family. So they come back, they are brought back to take care of the needs of family. They are, of course, now closer to the Creator. As they are closer to the Creator, the prayers that are made is that you must now, you are who is closer to the Creator. Take our prayers to the Creator. Take our pleas, supplications to the Creator.
The relationship between the living and the ancestors is that of service, tirere. A person serves the ancestors The service is the same kind of service that a child is supposed to do to a parent, and that the younger person is supposed to give to an older person. Doesn't matter who that older person is. So, and especially in the African setting, where there is such a strong obligation for the child to keep and serve and uphold the parent, as it were, in thankfulness for what the parent has done in raising the child up. This obligation continues even after the dead have died. The African do not worship Badimu. They serve them. They respect them. They do service to them. They do their obligation to them as children. And Badimu, therefore, in being served like this, being the people of Mudimu, sort of pass on the accolades for such service to Mudimu, who is the source of all the blessings of the good ones, and the curse to all who are bad.
They do not worship their ancestors. They actually celebrate the existence of the past as projected by the deeds, by the great deeds of the past, which they inherit, which they have to reshape, which they are nourished by. They are influenced by, nourished by those actions, and they celebrate those actions.
The best service that is given to the ancestor is, unlike common opinion, which is expressed by foreign scholars, not propitiation, but the living of a life that is righteous, kind, and good. Doing good is a service to the ancestors. Therefore, you will find that serving the other person and being sensitive to the needs of the other person is supposed to be a way of serving the ancestors.
Basic human morality is universal. By whatever means we come to it, or whatever arguments we use to explain it, our human intuition reveals a very similar vision of who we are and how to act and interact. The ancestors, being close to God, are the moral guardians of the community. They reward the good for proper service, and they allow problems to attack the negligent. The ancestors are served by the living as if they were still alive, and death, with all its uncertainties, is overcome by this belief in a continuing existence.
All the time in life, whether as individuals by ourselves, in company with others, at home in the Lapa, the ancestors are present, and they are all the time participating in life, bringing in with them all that aura, all that divinity of Mudimu in full, in any situations. We feel them all the time, but sometimes not as consciously. Best we feel them when we are asleep at night. In other words, when more relaxed and not conscious of ourselves, this is the time when people feel the presence of Badimu. Hence, dreams play such a very important part in the relationship with Badimu.
There's a tendency in Western culture to pay little importance to dreams. Yet it has not always been so. Joseph in Egypt was able to interpret the Pharaoh's dream about the 7 fat cows and the 7 lean cows in such a way that the whole culture was saved from starvation during a long drought. Modern psychology, as taught by Freud and Jung, has renewed the interest in dreams. They have shown how dreams can be used to solve the complex problems of mental health and also to assist in the process of spiritual unfoldment or spiritual growth.
If somebody dreams of a deceased person, of an ancestor, it is a way in which the ancestor is communicating something to that person. The African will never say, I dreamt of my late father. He says, I saw my late father in my dream. So the ancestors are part of life, and they are people like us. We see them more clearly in dreams, but we feel them if we are conscious people. If we are sensitive people, we feel them all the time.
There are two kinds of dreams. There are dreams that are, well, just everyday simple dreams and so on. They may also be concerned with remembering somebody or somebody coming to see you and so on. There's another kind of dream which is a message, symbolic, powerful, and keeps on repeating itself in the mind and psyche of the person. This kind of dream is strong afterwards. It is a strong dream, but usually the dreams that are related to the ancestors are in the form of symbols of certain kinds, so they require interpretation. People interpret them, that this dream means this dream means that dream means that. It's not like the dreams that are everyday dreams. They are special dreams which you have to take to ask a diviner or a priest, if you like, explain what the dream means and so on. But the powerful dreams occur to ordinary people. I mean, you see friends of yours that you are close to, and then if they keep on coming, and then you think they want to convey a certain message. In which case, of course, you look for the message, and the message comes as an answer.
Through dreams and their symbols, the ancestors make contact with the living, and sometimes through visions or trance states. There are certain special services which are offered to the ancestors, such as when a child is born, or at initiation when the young people graduate into adulthood, or at a marriage ceremony. An important aspect of these services is the sacrifice or slaughtering of an animal and the spilling of the blood.
The idea about the spilling of blood, what many people call sacrifice, indeed perhaps it is a sacrifice, is that when the blood goes into the ground where the ancestors are, it is arousing them, it is linking them to the living. And they then come up at that point and become, in a more dramatic way, part and parcel of whatever the ceremony is. The ancestors, therefore, are invited to become part of every ritual, and by their presence and by their participation in every ritual, that ritual is, as it were, glued together, sealed, and given permanence, and even given, as it were, a status of holiness.
The idea of slaughtering, the idea of celebrating the relationship, it's a symbolic way. The spirit of the animal is not seen in very just loose terms. It is respected. In fact, the one who slaughters the animal goes to the north side of the cattle fold and prays, apologize to the animal and prays that the animal's journey itself is fulfilled and fulfilling. The idea is to establish a link between the living and the dead. The spirit of the animal itself becomes that kind of instrument to make up that linkage. Also, of course, the animal, you eat it. In other words, you invoke revive the relationships that exist in the society, because of course the idea is always to keep alive the relationship in terms of the larger family.
As important as the blood is, even more important is the roasting of the meat in an open fire. And as it smells, goes out, and the smoke from the burning meat goes off. As one Swazi old man says to me, "Amadrozi akuthanda ukunuka kwenyama." The ancestors like the smell of roasting meat. And as the meat is roasted, even just as holy is when the people around eat it together and become bound by the eating of that meat together into one. Because the essence of African religious life, the African relationship with the ultimate reality, is when people share together.
At the moment of celebration, when you remember the dead ancestor or dead ancestors, there are certain songs that are sung. They are usually, of course, have the slow, creative movements. It's a sacred song. They're slow, and there are movements that invoke the idea of integration, of life, continuity, and so on. The ancestors are moving towards the highest spirituality. That is the spirituality which is not physical anymore, but contains the images of the earth.
Africans do not have any conception of heaven and hell in the afterlife as a reward or punishment for deeds of this life. What they do aspire to is the semi-divine status represented by the realms of the living dead.
Every person who has gone through initiation, in other words, every adult person has the potential to become an ancestor. But ancestors have different, as it were, weights in life and in importance. It is not only the good who become ancestors, but a person becomes a remembered ancestor over a long period of time and with a greater intensity on the life of people, according to the type of life that person has lived. When a person has lived a life of being good, doing well by other people, and touching other lives in a positive way, after death, that person is remembered more, and that person continues more in the lives of the people. The dead who were bad are relegated to a kind of semi-organized forgetfulness. And that is hell to me. That is the African idea of hell, to be forgotten by your own people. There are certain people in the general community who seem to be chosen by the ancestors and then are much more able to transmit and to channel the relationship with the ancestors with the ordinary people, who are even able to channel people in connection with their own ancestors. I'm talking here about the Inyanga Dingaka, what you might call the shaman.
In the following episode, we will look at the Sangomas, or healers of African society. We will hear of the real contribution they make to their people, and also of the deviants amongst them who we in the West have called witch doctors. place is called Motse, the spiritual valley of the Sangomas. No society in the world is without its healers, healers of the body, the soul, and the frequent splits in the social fabric. The integrity of society is sustained, on the one hand, by the benefits derived from the talents of these people, and on the other, by the belief in their abilities to heal and their powers to travel to other realms. The development of the analytical and rational mind in our modern culture has separated and compartmentalized everything. The world has been divided into mind and matter. The human person split into body, soul, and spirit. Scientists deal with matter, and philosophers with the mind. Doctors take care of our bodies, and psychologists of our thoughts and feelings, and it's the priests who specialize in matters of the spirit. In pre-literate cultures, the boundaries between inner and outer reality are not rigid. The supernatural is accepted as an integral part of life. The work of traditional healers covers a host of activities, ranging from the mundane to the miraculous. What is the source of the healer's calling?
African understanding, traditional understanding, is that in every human person there is an element of divinity, a part of the total reality. Therefore, every person is like the big force vital, a force vital in miniature. So every person has divinity in him or her. And that is why the sacredness, as it were, of the human person is expressed in the expression that says Mutu Kimudiu. Literally translated, it just means a human person is divinity. But it does happen that in some people there is just more of this element of divinity than in others. Some are born right from birth with this gift, and it is detected in them either at birth or just in their childhood, and then the people will discover that this child is, as it were, someone who has the gifts of God much more than in other people. This higher than normal intensity of divinity in some persons can be seen and discovered much later in life. It could, as it were, lie quiet and dormant throughout childhood, and then later on come up and show itself and be recognized for what it is, a gift of Mudimu through Badimu. At this stage, it may cause the person to become hysterical, to dream all kinds of uncomfortable dreams, to see visions, and to do all this. And then it is at this stage then that it needs to be attended to.
The wounded healer is a term often used in the literature on shamanism. What it means is that someone who's had a severe illness or a near-death experience often comes out of it with a new perspective on life. It is this changed perspective that makes them right to be trained as a healer or a sangoma.
This stage is called Khotwasa. Ukutwasa in Nguni may mean something like the opening up of a flower. It is like the opening up of a cocoon so that butterfly can come out and bloom. We use the word Khotwasa in relation to the sun rising in the morning, or in relation to the moon coming up. When the new moon comes, we say the new moon is Twasa. Or it can be used, well, in relation to the seasons. The one season Twasas. So you can see that what is happening here is that this person is then seen as if the person is getting into a new phase of life. A phase which, by the way, always is supposed to be filled with something more than the